You ever look at a massive skyscraper or a brand new bridge and just wonder, how in the world did they know how much that would cost before they even started building? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that exact puzzle. We're diving into the critical difference between estimating and tendering. I mean, that's the big question, right? It's really at the heart of the entire construction industry. You've got these detailed plans, you've got a piece of land, but everything else, all the materials, the labor, the time, it's just this massive, incredibly complex forecast. So, how do they actually pull it off? Well, the answer really comes down to two different but super connected processes: estimating and tendering. The easiest way to think about it is like this. One is the private calculation, and the other is the public pitch. Together, they're what turn an architect's drawing into a real-life contract. This really breaks it down, doesn't it? Estimating is all the internal homework the contractor does. It's them figuring out the absolute rock-bottom cost to get the job done right. Tendering, though, that's the strategic game. That's taking your costs and packaging them into a competitive offer to try and beat out all the other bidders for the job. So let's start at the very beginning, the foundation of it all, the estimate. Before a contractor can even think about making an offer, they have to know exactly what they're getting themselves into. And this is where the real science, and maybe a little bit of art, of construction pricing begins. The key word here is anticipated. This isn't a guess. It's a really meticulous forecast. It's the process of calculating every single expense you can think of, from the very first bag of cement all the way to the last hour of an electrician's time. And getting this right is a huge deal for everyone. For the contractor, look, a bad estimate could mean you win the job, but you lose your shirt doing it. And for the client, the estimate is that first big reality check. It tells them if their dream project is actually affordable or if it's, time to go back to the drawing board. So how's it actually done? Well, it follows a pretty clear logic. First, you review all the plans to really understand what's being built. Then you measure everything, and we'll talk about what a takeoff is in just a minute. After that, you apply costs to all those quantities, add in your business costs and profit, and finally, you do a last check for any risks. It's a very methodical process, building up from the tiniest detail to that one big number. All right, so once you have that rock-solid internal estimate, it's time to face the competition. And that brings us to the tendering process, which is where that private calculation becomes a very public bid for the job. Tendering is basically a formal competition. The client says, hey, I want to build this, and a bunch of contractors submit their sealed offers. It's a structured way to find the best value. And it's really important to remember, best value doesn't always just mean the lowest price. Now this is probably the most critical link between these two ideas. You just can't create a good, responsible, winning tender without having a detailed, accurate estimate to back it up. Let me put it another way. The estimate is your cost. The tender is your price. They are not the same thing, but one is born directly from the other. This whole competition is governed by some key documents. The tender documents are like the official rulebook. Different forms of contract decide who's on the hook if things go wrong. And a lot of times, you'll see something called a bill of quantities, or BOQ, which is pretty much a giant, itemized shopping list for the entire project that every bidder has to put a price on. Okay, so we've looked at the internal math and the external competition. Now let's just connect all the dots and see that complete journey from a simple idea all the way to a signed contract. See, the path is actually pretty clear and straightforward. A contractor starts by creating their internal estimate. Using that number as a base, they figure out their strategy and submit a formal tender. And then finally, the client looks at all the tenders and awards the contract to the winning bidder. It's a logical step-by-step, from calculation to commitment. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the high-wire act that contractors are on every single day. The pressure is just immense. Price it too high, you don't get any work. Price it too low, you could be busy for months or even years and end up losing a ton of money. That estimate has to be just right. Okay, before we wrap this up, let's do a quick lightning round of some key terms, because if you understand this lingo, you'll really get the whole process. First up, the takeoff. Remember we mentioned this earlier? This is that measurement step. It's literally the process of going through the blueprints and counting every single thing, every door, every window, every meter of pipe, to build a master list of exactly what you need. Next is overhead. These are just the costs of being in business,
Things like office rent, paying salaries for people in the office, stuff like that. A little piece of those costs has to be included in every project price just to keep the lights on.
Contingency. Think of this as the project's financial safety net. Construction is super unpredictable. What happens if you're digging a foundation and you hit a massive boulder no one knew was there? Well, a contingency fund is built in to cover exactly those kinds of surprises so the whole budget doesn't get blown up. And finally, profit margin. Pretty straightforward. After all the direct costs, all the risks, and all the overheads are covered, this is the percentage the contractor adds on top. It's the whole reason they're in business in the first place, to do a great job and to earn a profit. So when you boil it all down, it really comes to this. The estimate tells you what it's going to cost you to even play the game. The tender, well, that's the bet you place to win it. And that final bid, it involves so much more than just math. It's about strategy, it's about risk, it's about knowing the market. It's a high-stakes decision that literally builds the world all around us.